Today, my name is David Gugino, and in today's book review, I have another book about money. Something we all need to learn, something we all need to talk about in life, but money is a very vital thing that you need in life in order to survive. And if you really think about it, from the Stone Ages through the early 19th centuries, World War II, stuff like that, there was always a type of currency that you needed in order to survive. Now, in reality, when it comes to money, a lot of people do not think about this, but you need to think about how you use money, and you need to think about your behavior towards money. And it might sound completely crazy, but in reality, how you behave towards money is going to be how your finances are going to be in the future. So the book that I have today is one that I actually read in Florida. I remember buying this book and bringing it to a trip in Florida when I went with my mother. And I remember reading this by the pool and being so astounded as to the knowledge that I learned about money and my finances. So now, the book that I have for you all today is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. My bad. Now, this is a very interesting book, and the reason why it's so interesting is it talks about your behavior towards money. Because in real life, you can tell people to save their money, to invest their money, to invest in retirement and stuff like that. But the scary thing is, you can tell people that, but when you tell people, that does not mean they will listen to you. And also when you tell people that, they don't know how important it is, and they think what they're doing in life is just fine. If they still have a roof over their head, if they're still eating, if they're still having fun with their friends, in reality, they don't really think about money. And that's just the reality of money in today's world. People just look at it as something, hey, it's there and I don't need to do anything about it. So with my money situation, I make sure I have enough money for my bills, enough money to afford my editing software for these things, for my healthy food as a power lifter, and for my fighting class. So the other thing with that is not only is there budgeting, but I really make sure I don't splurge my money like a moron, so I can have all of that. And how I don't do that is my behavior, my maturity, and wanting to do those things and to be different than everybody else. Being different with money is, it's like people say the only way to stay rich is to live like you're poor. And you look at some celebrities, some of them, who don't flex their money and dress like average people. Well, that's why some of those people are the richest people on earth. Splurge their money. Their behavior towards it is, I'm going to save and be smart with it in case anything happens. People think that nothing's going to happen, or when something does happen, you don't have the money, you're going to be in trouble. Like, I was in a car accident actually a few days ago, and my car can be fixed now, but at the time I thought it was going to be totaled. I'd have to pay this expense, and then I actually got another car the day after the accident to drive to and from my job. And then, as crazy as it sounds, there were no expenses because insurance covered the towing, insurance covered if I need to buy another car, and my other car can be repaired. So the Lord took care of me there, but the moral of the story is I had the money to either buy another car, pay for mine to get fixed, or have another method of transportation. But enough about that. Let's dive into the book here. The first thing I have, actually, at the very beginning of the book, he mentioned something, let me find it here, that I was immediately hooked onto when I first opened this book. And here's what it says. The premise of this book is that doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. And behavior is hard to teach, even to really smart people. You ever hear people say, for a smart guy, you really are a dumbass? Something like that. There are celebrities who are really smart, or athletes who are the best, their skill, their talent is so beyond this world, and we pay them so much money to play this sport. We pay them so much money to play this sport, and then they make bad decisions with their money, and they're really smart, but they choose to make bad decisions with their money. Smart people are going to make bad decisions whether they like it or not. People in general are going to make bad decisions. Some people think it's really cool to make bad decisions. I don't, because in my life story, when I have children of my own, I would certainly like to set a good example for them and tell them that this is what your life is going to turn out if you do not take care of yourself take care of your surroundings and take care of your finances. But that's just me. People are going to do whatever they want, and that's what you got to tell people sometimes. They're going to do whatever they want. Now, the other thing I liked about this book, which is my main point here, are about luck and risk. Luck and risk are siblings. They are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. Luck and risk are siblings. They are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. So the next thing I'm going to read here about luck and risk is going to be different. Before we get into that, think about luck and risk. People say the harder you work, the luckier you get. I believe that to some degree, but what I actually believe is the more risk you take, eventually you're going to get lucky. Eventually. So like with being an actor, for example, the only reason I bring up the acting business so much on this channel is because it was something I like to pursue in the future, but also people don't realize how difficult the business can be, but it's also interesting as to how the acting business works. People say you hear about the people that make it, but you don't hear about the people that don't make it. I'm like, yes, that is how it works, but honestly, if you think about it, the people that don't make it, they find purpose in life. Like, there are many stories of people trying to make it in music, people trying to make it in sports, and they find purpose in something else. Now, it doesn't mean they're happy with their decision, but it was God's plan for them to do that. And some of them make tons of money, some of them become the best in the world, and some of them are happy. But then I bet you a lot of them think in the back of their head, you know what, this is something that I really wanted to do. But in reality, it was God's plan, it was God's direction towards them. But luck and risk are guided by forces other than individual effort. So the thing I have here about luck and risk is this. Now, success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose. Bill Gates said that. You are not invincible, and if you acknowledge that luck brought you success, then you have to believe in luck's cousin, risk, which can turn your story around just as quickly. Failure can be a lousy teacher, because it seduces smart people into thinking their decisions were terrible, when sometimes they just reflect the unforgiving realities of risk. So when you say success is a lousy teacher, it seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose, honestly, like when I brought up the athletes example earlier, they think they're invincible, they think they're on top of the world because the world loves them, because they get paid so much money, they think they don't need to know anything else. This is just what they know. They think that's it. But like I've said in my other videos, actually in the last few videos, you don't know how much you don't know, but that also comes with life. There are many life lessons with success and failure, and some people don't understand them, which is a very sad thing about life. And when I say don't understand them, people think that when they fail, it's over. People think when they're successful to some degree, they think, yeah, I'm successful, I don't want to do anything else with my life. Or they try to do more and are still not satisfied. You cannot measure anything. You can't really measure failure. Because people fail in different things, and people just fail in general. Like in that car accident, that was a fail that day. It was icy roads, but I should have been driving slower. So I failed and could have lost a lot of money, but I didn't. When you arrive at work and show up late and get in trouble for it, I failed showing up to work late. But I still have a job, and I still made money, and eventually got a promotion. Yep, you're successful there, but because you failed, you learned how important it was to not show up late. So failure and risk are lessons to learn with failure and risk. And when it says failure can be a lousy teacher into thinking their decisions were terrible, when sometimes they just reflect on the unforgiving realities of risk, honestly, when you make decisions, you might think it's a good decision, and then when you realize, oh, it's horrible, it made me fail or it made me lose, you're like, huh, I can't believe that's how it turned out. Because there was a company that I worked for where I forgot to clock out and drove back to the shop, and I was an hour over, so they gave me an hour of overtime, and instead of telling anybody, I just took it, and I got wrote up for it. And my boss told me that the HR people liked you, but in reality, you might have been fired for that. Now, the Lord was with me there again in my life, but I made a decision that I thought was good and thought could make me more money, but it turned out to be a failure, and it got me in trouble. So that's the point of that example. But you can't let the weird alpha males out there teach you what success is. Success can't be measured. Your success is yours to define. People think being rich, having money, and being with a lot of girls is successful. And people think that having a family and having children and doing what's for God, doing what God wants is success. But it can't be measured. It just can't be. And that is honestly a fundamental fact of life. Success cannot be measured. Now, when it says you are not invincible, and if you acknowledge that, luck just brought you success, then you have to believe in luck's cousin, risk, which can turn your story around just as quickly. So you're not invincible, but even with the athlete example, they took a risk to play a sport and do damage to their body and train hours and hours every day to do their sport, and it paid off. But then when they became successful, they thought they knew everything there was about life because they were successful. They didn't think about risks, they didn't think about luck, and they might think, there was no luck involved, and there was no risk involved, I'm just good at it. No. You risked a little bit of your life if you think about it, and the luck was the university or the team chose you. And in the acting business, you could do a TV series for years and years, like for 10 seasons for example, and you have a job for 10 years. But where luck plays in is, will you be cast for another role? Will you do this in another movie? Or, like when you play for a series, I mean, after the 6th season, you're like, yep, I got another season coming. You don't know if there's going to be another season. You also don't know if you have any other, any other auditions, any plays, or any more work coming your way if your season doesn't work out. So that's where luck comes in the acting business. Now, yes, you have to work hard for your roles, and when you get a role, you have to work hard for them. But luck comes around and risk comes around the acting business when you end a job and when you're trying to look for another job. At least, so I've heard. Now, the third and final point that I have in the psychology of money is about planning. We all love a good plan, don't we? You come home from work, you write down your plans for your days off. You're going to do this in the morning, do this in the afternoon, do this for dinner. We all like plans, don't we? But there's a fundamental fact, there's a fundamental rule of life when it comes to planning. So listen to this. This is another valuable piece of information that I have learned from the psychology of money. Compounding doesn't rely on earning big returns. Merely good returns sustain uninterrupted for the longest period of time, especially in times of chaos and havoc will always win. Planning is important, but the most important part of every plan is to plan on the plan not going according to plan. A plan is only useful if it can survive reality. In a future filled with unknowns is everyone's reality. How is that not true? A plan is only useful if it can survive reality, and a future filled with unknowns is everyone's reality. Planning is important, but the most important part of every plan is to plan on the plan not going according to plan. So like when you're planning that lovely day of yours, and like for example in my car accident, I was planning to have a great day at work, I was planning to go to the gym, and I was planning to do this, or do some of the work on this at night, but then I got in my car wreck. I was 3 hours late to work. I still worked, but then I still went to the gym after work, but I was tired and and the moral of the story with that is, I still did what I wanted to do that day. Just a little curveball that was thrown was getting in a car accident first thing in the morning, and the car accident happened at 5:40 in the morning. So think about that. When it comes to and I could have not worked out. I could have been so upset and sad and nervous I could have just went home and slept, but I'm like, nope, we have a powerlifting meet coming up, so we're going to train whether we like it or not. And sometimes you're not going to like doing things when it's not according to plan. But in life, you have to do things you don't want to do. If you want to get farther in life, you have to do things you don't want to do. And if you want to get farther in life, you have to deal with unknowns in everyone's reality. Unknowns is reality. You are going to be thrown at you. You're going to get into random things. And sometimes you might think something's going to be a great experience, when in reality, it's not. You have to deal with that. And honestly, when it comes to adversity, that's what adversity is. There are some people where their whole day is ruined if it does not go according to plan. At dinner with your friends, but you have to stay over or work for a little bit. When you go to dinner with your friends, but everyone is a dud or no one shows up that you want to. Or you're going to a friend's house and your friend says, hey, I'm not having it anymore because no one's coming. You're just like, wow, that is unfortunate. Yeah, because I was looking forward to doing that, but that is life for you. And unknowns with your finances, there are going to be unknowns with your finances. But unknowns as in my car accident, you get injured and have to go to the hospital and have a medical bill. Your landlord raises your rent, stuff like that. But that is why you plan on not going according to plan. And that is why you have your emergency fund. That is why you have savings. That is why you have additional money set aside. Because when you do that and random expenses come or random shit just that is how you prepare. And you have to prepare on your plan, not going according to plan. So this book was very, very good. I very much enjoyed it. It is the psychology of money. It is about your behavior towards money and just behavior. There are some life lessons, but timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness is what the book says. But the takeaway for this is focus on your behavior. If you think you're running out of time to pursue your goals, if you can't make it on time to certain places, if you can't make it time to work on your side business, if you can't pay your bills, if you can't talk to this girl, focus on your behaviors towards all those things, because a majority of what happens in life is all dictated as to how you behave. How you behave towards adversity, how you behave towards things not going to plan. Your behavior plays such a pivotal role in your life that it's almost crazy, because behavior is reality. So the takeaway for this is focus on your behavior and live in reality. Live in reality. It is real. It is real. Don't live in your mind, because your mind tells you things, and the thing that's going on in your mind is probably not happening in your life right now. But live in reality. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all read this book, and you all have a great day.